Let's do a check on shares of DraftKings. Right now, they are down over 11% here. This comes after a mixed earnings print, results showing that the company missed on revenue expectations. DraftKings also teasing out a new surcharge for customers in states with higher taxes. For more on the potential implications here, we want to welcome in DraftKings CEO Jason Robins. Jason, thanks for coming on. I want to start on your outlook because this was a key data point for investors. When you're looking at the balance sheet and what changes you want to make to bolster that outlook moving forward, what would you want to tell investors is the single biggest change that you're going to be able to make moving forward?
Well, I think really it's less about a big change and more just investment in what is an incredibly strong customer acquisition environment. The big change we're going to be making for next year is the implementation of the gaming tax surcharge, which will not affect this year. So, Illinois, which raised taxes, is going to be about a $50 million hit to EBITDA in the back half of the year. But we do think that there's some optimism that the gaming tax surcharge will help offset next year and maybe even deliver a positive EBITDA tailwind.
Jason, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that because the reaction, at least from the street's perspective, was a bit mixed just in terms of how this could be used maybe as an advantage by some of your competitors to gain market share, whether or not this is something that you could see some sort of backlash with when it comes to your users. How do you view that?
Well, let's see what happens. I mean, I think I would imagine most in the industry are looking at the same math we are, and over the long term, companies need to make a profit. So I think, there might be others that choose to invest less in product and other sorts of customer experience, and that'll be a decision they're making. And we're confident that, listen, everybody has the same total margin to invest with. So, everybody has to make their decisions about where they put it. And we've always said that we think product is the most important thing, customer experience the most important thing, and we want to make sure that we can continue to invest there because that's really, forget even our legal competitors, that's the best way we can compete with the illegal market, which is paying no taxes. So really, for us to be able to continue to make those investments, we have to be able to make a profit in states that have high tax rates. And the reality is that it's not just New York now, there's a few of them.
Yeah, and Jason, that certainly makes a heck of a lot of sense from a strategy, from your strategy standpoint. I'm curious, though, if we take a step back, maybe what this more tells us about some of the trends that we are seeing play out within the online sports betting space. When you take into account that many of the states that have legalized gambling most recently have had higher tax rates, is that something that you think is going to be likely here as we talk about a wider adoption and more states legalizing sports gambling?
Well, it's not entirely true. I mean, if you look at most states that have recently legalized, they have not had a higher tax rate than that 20%. North Carolina, Ohio, and Massachusetts, which were, three big ones over the last year, all are at 20%. States like Kentucky were below that. So it really hasn't been. Illinois, unfortunately, raised their tax rate, but they had been, live with a 15% tax rate for quite some time. So, it really is only 4 states right now that have had, Washington, D.C. as well. But, you have to remember there's 25 states plus D.C. that have legal online sports betting now, 38 that have some form of legal sports betting, and only 4 have that, I think, tax rate above 20%. So it's really not most states. And, I think most customers won't be affected by this is the reality.
For those customers who are impacted by it, can you operationalize for me how you plan on including this in the platform moving forward and what that might look like in practice?
Yeah, so we have some shots of product visuals in our investor deck you can look at, but it's very small. In Illinois, it'll be low single-digit percentage charge on the net winnings. So, for example, if you bet $10 to win 20, you might be getting $19.60-something instead of 20 back once the charge is deducted. So it'll be very transparent. A lot of people ask me, why didn't you just bury it in pricing or something like that? And the reality is that while certainly, maybe people notice it more, and I realize that might lead to more complaints, I think the trust and the ability for customers to know that we will always be transparent with them, that is sacred. And so, we're taking a very transparent approach. It'll be clearly line itemed out. There'll be no question about it, but it's a small amount. On that bet I mentioned, 10 to win 20, it amounts to about 30-something cents in Illinois. So Hopefully, customers will not see it as a huge thing. I think a lot of customers in other industries like hotels and taxis and many other things are used to paying fees in states that charge taxes. In fact, most of those industries charge 100% of the tax back to the consumer. We're only charging a portion of it here.
Jason, let's look ahead to the NFL season, critically important as season, a couple of months here coming up for you. What are your expectations just in terms of participation and how much growth you're expecting to see this year versus what you've seen in years past?
Well, I think this is going to be our biggest NFL season by a long shot. Just the momentum we have on the customer acquisition side and general activity side going into it. And this is usually our least busy time of year. I mean, we do have Olympics, a few other things, but for the most part, this is generally the slowest time of year for us just due to the sports calendar. So to be seeing the kind of customer acquisition we're seeing and activity we're seeing now, I think bodes really well for what I think is going to be an absolutely massive NFL season. And then right on into the fall, into NBA, NHL, World Series, and all those other great events. It's, this is the best time of year from my standpoint from a sports calendar perspective.